Hello to all of you. Well, it's Picken. I'm CEO and founder of Migrate, and it's time to bring you the 18 lessons for 2018. I am sitting here in a restaurant, a little street restaurant in Cape Town, so there's a bit of background noise, but it is what it is. It's been a lively year, and I think it probably is a good way to end off the year. So let's look at 2018 and what do I have in correlation with Elon Musk. And I think this article says it all. Elon Musk says it's been the past year is the most difficult and painful year of his career, 2018, and goes on to talk all about it in Fast Company. So Elon, you and I definitely share the same opinion. 2018 has certainly been the most difficult year of my career by a long way. And what was interesting is that my previous most difficult year was 2005, which is the year that I actually expanded IPS. And it's the year my dad died, and it was an extremely tough year, and it did really set us up, and we had a huge growth trend in the years after that. But shit, it's hard when you're going through that expansion, and certainly from a Migrate perspective, you know, we've experienced very similar things this year in terms of it being the most difficult year yet. So let's go through the 18 lessons that I've learned in terms of 2018. The first one was from Roger Hamilton, and you know, I'm a big believer in coaching. I can never understand why people, you know, the most successful teams in the world, you know, the most successful golfers, tennis players, business people, they all have coaches. And I can never understand why people want to be successful, but then don't have coaches. And so from my perspective, it's an absolute no-brainer. I've worked closely with Roger Hamilton for more than 7 years now. And so I started off with this period because 10 years ago, he went through a very difficult period and effectively, you know, nearly went bankrupt and a whole bunch of other things. So I said to him, well, when you went through this, Roger, how did you deal with it? And he said, well, it's simple. The first thing that you do is that you take responsibility. You don't blame other people. You're fully accountable, and you learn those lessons. You know, what are the lessons that the universe is trying to teach you? What are the lessons that you're accountable for? What are the lessons that you ensure that you don't repeat? The second thing is that you make a commitment that it will never be like this again. So you accept the painful situation, but you make a commitment to never allow it to happen again. And the third one is that you just come up with a plan. You take one day at a time. You get very steadfast on what you want, you know, what the future needs to look like. And then you go about making that happen. And you basically don't allow anyone or anything to let you deviate from your plan in terms of where you want to get to. So that's my first lesson that I learned, you know, going through very tough times, implementing very tough restructures, etc. It's not easy. And you know, again, I've learned from my own personal experience that often in life, the hardest things are often the best things. And, you know, one of the things I learned a long time ago is that in very tough times, you know, you never really know what the lesson is at the time, but, you know, afterwards you get to learn what that lesson actually is. And so whenever I'm in it, I always know that, you know, the future will be much better. But you've got to go through that pain. And so my first lesson is coaching and the advice that Roger gave me in terms of getting through very tough times. My second lesson was, you know, building a global team is more than difficult. It's hard enough to build a team when you're one team, one culture in one office. It's that much more difficult when you're trying to go cross-border, cross-culture, cross-time zones, cross-understanding, etc. We've now got teams on 5 different continents, and it really has been probably, you know, the most difficult thing I've had to deal with this year in terms of the team and trying to align the team and getting the vision. We started this year getting everyone into a room to get very clear on what the vision was and where we were going. And it was from that it became fairly obvious that it was time to restructure, because certain people were going east and certain people were going west, and it was better to separate the two teams. And it becomes very important, coming back to the first lesson I've already mentioned from Roger, which is you've got to be very clear on the vision. And, you know, Roger said something to me, which I loved, which is when it comes to the vision, you've got to be completely steadfast on where you want to get to. And then you've got to be completely flexible on how to get there. And you've got to be able to communicate that with clarity to the team. You've got to allow them to have the accountability and the autonomy to be able to fluctuate and have the variances on how you get there. But you, as the leader founder, you know, have to have complete commitment and clarity as to where, and steadfast to where that vision is. And if people don't like it, then it's better that they move on, rather conflict around where that vision is. The third one for me was rhythms. And this one's a really interesting one. And I want to bring up a slide here for you, which again, I learned from Roger, and I highly, highly recommend that you implement this. And this lesson for me is how you, sorry, just give me 2 seconds here. So I should be sharing my screen with you. And this really for me is the rhythms. Now I've learned this from Roger for, sure, probably the best part of 7 years now, but I've never been able to properly implement it in the team. And this is the way to run a global team with different cultures and different people on different time zones, because that's what they've got, a global team. And this year they're going to earn revenues of $15 million, etc. So there's no excuse to say it's not possible. And it all starts at the top here with the why and getting your enterprise promise, so that you get very clear on where you're going. What is your big picture? What is your why? Then every year you do your team charter and you renew that annually, and you check in quarterly. Then you do your personal compass, which is quarterly, so that every individual gets clear on what their accountability is and what their autonomy is. You then run promotions, projects, and processes that you track on a monthly and a weekly basis. And then you do that all off dashboards. And I will share with you quickly, if I go back to my laptop here, and I'm purposely jumping around so that you can even see how I operate within this thing. Here's the flight deck template. And they've got, I don't have time today to run through this, but they've got what they call the 4 Ps. Then they've got the 3 Is. So you can see the 4 Ps here are principles, processes, promotions, and priorities. Then they've got the 3 Is, which stand for the improvements, the impediments, and the issues, and how the team can constantly get better. Then they've got the flight decks, and this is how you can track things so that each and every week you know whether you're on track or off track. Think of it like flying an airplane. Are you going, if you want to go to London, the pilots or even the systems are consistently making sure that you're on track. And, for me, this is such an incredible system. And it also creates that clarity within the team to allow people to know what they want to do and when they want to do it. And so these rhythms, these best practice rhythms are really something that I've learned and been a massive lesson number 3. The fourth one for me is that I spend a lot of time trying to understand and learn what wealth is and what different people's perceptions are of wealth. And a lot of people have very negative perceptions around the word wealth, and they believe it's not for them and only for really wealthy people. And what was interesting, again, Roger gave a great definition of wealth this year when I was in Bali with him, and he said, wealth is what you have when you've lost all your money. And it's a really interesting one, because a lot of people think that wealth is how much money you've got, and it's actually not. It's about your life. It's about how much you can contribute, your purpose, your legacy, your destiny. It's about how much fun you can have and how much impact you can have on other people. And it's about the freedom. It's your freedom of choices and everything else. So, wealth is a very individual, personal thing. There's no one way to describe wealth other than it's what you have when you lose all your money, because it's not only about money. And so for me, that was a really big lesson in my life. And, I needed to review that and say, well, am I doing enough in my life? Am I having enough impact? Am I having enough fun? And these become big lessons in terms of your life and where things are going and what is happening and how is it happening. The 5th lesson for me was crypto and the hype. It was interesting, a year ago, everyone thought that Bitcoin would be going to $50,000 and $100,000. And, now it's fallen as low as $3,000. I don't quite know what it's on at the moment. We had all the hype around the ICOs, and they talk a lot about the Gartner hype. And it's really interesting because it's literally tracking and following what happened with the internet. Now, what's fascinating to me is that a lot of people, think it was just a fad, but I believe that blockchain was just like the internet. So there's going to be a huge hype. There's going to be the crash that's already happened. And then ultimately, 20 years later, look at the internet. You've still got Amazon, Alibaba, eBay, and really, Google, et cetera, companies that have materially changed your life. And I believe that the internet is going to be exactly the same. But one thing I will say is that people say that they shopped on Amazon. They didn't say they shopped on the internet. Okay. And it's in the same way they're going to do stuff like they're going to buy property, on the blockchain, but they're not going to say they buy property on the blockchain. They're just going to say they buy property, on Migrate or whatever. The blockchain is just the enabler that is going to happen. And so it's been amazing watching that hype. And a lot of people think that it's just a fad, but, I believe that it's a deep, deep industry trend that is certainly going to change your life. The 6th one for me is the best book. So the best book of 2018 for me is a book called New Power. and I think I should be able to find it for you quickly. I specifically am bouncing around between a couple of presentations here, and the reason being is that I've actually done a whole lot of presentations recently, and I basically wanted to just share with you a couple of the slides from these presentations. So let's just see if I can find this for you quickly. Yep, there it is. So if I share my screen quickly, it's called New Power, and it's got all these principles and frameworks of new power values, old power values, new power model, old power model. That's the book. I've spoken at length with our wealth partners and our investors around this and what you need to know in terms of returns, global and purposeful, exponential, short-term risk, long-term risk. I'm not going to talk about it in this webinar, and if you want to click below, you can actually get the recording of the webinar I did where I explained this in a huge amount of detail in terms of where things are going. And these are all the old world businesses, and although they're making money today, it's the Amazons, the Wikipedias, the Airbnbs, and the wealth migrates that are the future in terms of where things are going and what is really happening in terms of the new power model. So make sure that you read this book. Richard Branson believes that it's the best book that he's read in 2018. I fundamentally believe that it's critically important for you and for your children if you want to succeed in the 21st century of where things are going. The best comment that I have been given in 2018 for me was the best saying was by a lady by the name of Jessica Zartler. She's a blockchain consultant, and I was in Puerto Rico. If you haven't been to Puerto Rico, it's an amazing place. 4% tax, worldwide tax, and so a lot of American people are moving there. And she basically said the biggest shift is happening from scarcity to abundance and from competition to collaboration. Now let's just look at those words. You know, from scarcity, everyone lives in scarcity, to abundance, and from competition to collaboration. And, you know, for me, that was such a great saying in terms of where the world was going. And so what could you do differently in your life if you were moving from scarcity to abundance and from competition to collaboration? You know, it's really, really fascinating. The eighth thing for me was community companies. You know, we built Wealth Migrate as a community company. We got about 140 shareholders around the world. We've got numerous groups all over the world in terms of what is happening and how is it happening. And what's really interesting to me is that we then took that to a whole nother level, and we basically embarked on a Seeders campaign, which is our crowdfunding campaign with Seeders, which is the top equity crowdfunding platform in England and arguably Europe. And you can see here now that we've got 367 investors. So that's just through the Seeders campaign. We've got 1.25 million pounds. We've got another $100,000 committed today. So that's closer to 1.35. And that's not including the 80 people that we've helped offline. So we're probably at 240, considering we already have 140 and there's, you know, overlaps, etc. You know, this for me is all about being a global community. I mean, we're going to have in the region of 500 shareholders. Now, what's important in that global community is that you can see here that we've got different groups like our Global Wealth Group. We've got our Exponential Group, Exponential Technologies, where people are sharing all day long. We've got our Digital Real Estate. Sorry, I just want to make sure. Oh, I'm not sharing my screen. Silly me. So, sorry about that. Let me take a couple of steps back here. This is the Wealth Migrate and the 367 and the money that I raised. We've raised. You've got the Digital Real Estate Group. Here you can see everything around digital real estate. You've got the Exponential Group, which is everything around exponential technologies. You've got the Crypto Group, crypto and blockchain, which again is everything around crypto and blockchain. We've got our Global Wealth Group, which is everything around the global company. And I'm just giving you an example of everything to do with running and being part of a community company. And again, coming back to Seeders, it's been absolutely fascinating for me. You know, you can see the number of investors here and how this process works. You know, at Wealth Migrate, a lot of people thought that we went out and sort of found investors just to take down deals. Seeders don't do that. They're not the policeman. They're the enabler. And, you know, our community is really the one that has helped us succeed in terms of this process. You know, they've got a lot of investors, and you can see 367 investors is incredible. But we had to build the momentum, and they helped us with that process. The other thing I wanted to show you in terms of our community was this slide here. Let me just find it quickly, this slide here, which is our wealth collaborative economy. And this is our 6 different areas for our wealth partners and the 6 different areas we can grow. So you've got sort of business, You've got all the stuff with real estate and due diligence. You've got technology. You've got investors online and offline and everything with regards to the community. You've got the vision and the mission, including the Wealth University and the Wealth Movement. And then you've got exponential and if the whole concept around ideas and scale, et cetera, et cetera. So you can see there that there's a huge amount around the community. And for me, dealing with Cedars this year was an amazing experience of how a true equity crowdfunding platform works and really where we need to go. The ninth one for me was believing in yourself. And, when things go against you and a couple of deals aren't going according to where you want to go, we had to go through the restructure. A lot of people, giving us their opinions on what we should or shouldn't be doing, from the community to the shareholders to the board to even team members. It becomes very, very challenging, and I started off with talking about Elon Musk and, for me, there's a huge amount of similarities to what he's gone through this year. And I got told a story this year of Netflix, which I really, really loved. And the founder of Netflix, they started in the mid-90s and they said that one day, people will be able to watch, shows on the internet. And because and again, this is where you get steadfast on the vision, but be flexible on how you get there. It wasn't working. The internet wasn't fast enough. And so they did DVDs, they did mail order DVDs, and then they did rental DVDs. And they had a 5-year plan in 1995, and they completely missed it because by 2000, nothing had changed. Then they did another 5-year plan in 2000, and by 2005, they completely missed it because nothing had changed. And then they did another 5-year plan in 2005. And again, they got it completely wrong. And the reason being this time is because they shot through way above their projections because in 2007, the internet took off. Now, you must take a couple of steps back. In 2002, 2003, you just had 9/11, you'd had the .com boom bust. And basically, they had to retrench 2/3 of their team. They only had 120 people. And so these life cycles of business that are really, really tough, you've got to sort of believe in yourself and keep believing in yourself and make sure you've got a team around you that believes in where you're going. And then unfortunately, you just got to go through the hard times to get there. And, now everyone's got Netflix. I watched a show with my brother last night on Netflix. And, in 2018, it's the obvious choice. But they had to go through more than a decade of believing in themselves to get to where they wanted to get to, which is really interesting. And that brings me on to the 10th lesson, which is, start the day to yourself. We had a torrid year this year. We had the portfolio sale, which was supposed to bring in us $3.6 million. And every morning I'd wake up to bloody WhatsApps from my partners, it's on, it's off, it's on, it's off. It's like the biggest emotional roller coaster I've ever been on. And then we had Kensington, which still is not solved. And every day I wake up to my partner, Richard, and others on the ground, it's on, it's off. Well, it's not, it's on, it's always on, but delayed. And, it's a bloody nightmare, quite frankly. And I eventually decided, sod this, I'm going to take control of my life. So what I do at night is I switch this thing off. I wake up in the morning, I do my power hour, I do my priming, which is from Tony Robbins. And, it's 3 minutes of breathing. It's 3 minutes of gratitude. It's 3 minutes of energy going through your body. It's 3 minutes of your top 3 goals. And then it's this empowering music. And something else I learned from a lady called Sandra Morel is it's not your power hour, it's your empower hour. So it empowers you to empower others, which I absolutely loved. And it just sort of changed my framework because I was waking up in the morning and every day was just a bloody nightmare, quite frankly, because you're starting off with bad news and this roller coaster. And by doing it this way, you took control of your life. And I highly recommend, taking control of your life before, so that you're being proactive and not reactive. The 11th one for me was Kensington. And, again, a torrid year. And, a lot of people think they invest in property. You hear me talk all the time about this, but you don't. You invest in partners. And I mean, even this morning, most people on holiday, I was speaking to Richard. He's spending an hour with a lawyer, an hour with the developer, trying to get this thing sorted. And, it just shows me the power of people and most importantly, people you can trust, people who care about investors, people who will do whatever it takes to succeed for investors. And, for me, Richard Dunn just epitomizes that. It's amazing how so many other people try to point fingers and run away and blame each other. And yet, Richard just stayed the course. He just was very clear. This is what we have to do. This is how we're going to do it. And I'll do what it takes to get it done. And I'm so grateful to have a partner like him and to be working with someone like him. And I hope that for many decades, we'll be working together. We've worked together for more than a decade already, but he's the type of person that I want to work with long-term because he truly shows you, he's a metaphor for what is possible as an individual when you're dealing with a person you can trust through good and bad times. The 12th one for me is digital marketing. So this is a great lesson for me. You know, I knew the world has changed. I've always been very good at marketing, and I'm sorry to blow my own trumpet, but I have. And yet, as digital marketing came along, I never really found the time to go deep into it, and I always relied on other experts. And the best metaphor I can give you is like flying an airplane. It would be like sitting in an airplane hoping the pilot goes in the right direction. And for 3 or 4 years, we've quite frankly gone from pillar to post and wasted quite a lot of money and time. And then I, found Suraj, and I've worked with Suraj for many years. And this year, I finally got the guts as the leader to say, we are working with Suraj. There's no discussion or debate. And in the 6 months we've worked with him, it's been such an eye-opening experience. I don't want to become a pilot. I don't want to have to be the guy that flies the airplane, but I do want to be able to A, know that we're going in the right direction, B, be able to read all the dials, and C, most importantly, if my pilot dies, I can still fly the airplane. And so for me, it's opened my eyes to digital marketing. I did a digital marketing mastermind. I've really tried to go deep. In fact, I wish I had more time to go even deeper, because it is the future, and I truly want to understand it. And, as Tony Robbins says, marketing and innovation are the only two things a business needs. And, now digital marketing is all you need. And they epitomize that. They've got over 1 million members now on their platform, and they can do it in a very cost-effective way. And most importantly, engage with people and add value to them. And so I'm really excited about 2019, the hard work we've put in 2018 to truly understand digital marketing. And all of us need to, no matter what business we're in, it becomes critically important to understand it and have partners you can trust. And again, not consultants that want to earn big fees and promise the world and don't deliver. People are actually doing it. And there's a big, big difference between those people. Lesson 13 was the future trends and where the world is in 10 years. Again, I'm not going to go into this in detail. I did a webinar a week or two ago. You can find the link below. And it basically was the future trends. So there's 8 major social trends and there's 8 major technology trends. They're both intersecting. And between 2020 and 2025, it creates more than $1 billion opportunity. In my mind, it's actually $1 trillion opportunity. And, as Ray Kurzweil says, and equally the great skater, don't play to where the puck is, play to where the puck is going. And as Ray Kurzweil, who's the greatest futurist in terms of predicting future technologies, is that he looks for that intersecting point. And I spent an hour and a half on a webinar going through all these future trends and how both social and technology are collaborating and colliding. And it's at that intersection point where opportunity exists. And so, click on the link below if you want to watch that webinar. The 14th one for me is to have many income streams. It's interesting. I've been an entrepreneur since I was 25, through RPS and multiple property deals and everything. I've always had multiple income streams. And yet what was fascinating is that by growing a corporate company and having a board and all these fancy things, I became a bloody corporate employee. And it's driven me crazy. Okay, no matter how hard I work, I earn the same money, which is ridiculous. And so, for me, I've spent a lot of time at a personal level looking at that with my wife as well. At a business level, we've really been, quite tied up in whether or not the next medical deal went through, which again is ridiculous. And so really for me, a massive lesson in 2018 is to have multiple income streams, both at a personal level and at a business level. It's a major, major focus of mine going into 2019, both at a personal level and at a business level. And as Roger tries to do, every single quarter he sets himself a goal, both personally and for business. And every quarter he wants to grow by a certain percentage. And I'm going to make the commitment. As Tony Robbins always says, there's a difference between what you want and what you need. And so if you want $10,000 a month, then you probably won't get it. But if you need $10,000 a month, you'll find a way to get it. And so for me, multiple income streams, both at a personal level and a business level, is now beyond a want, it's a need. And I'm going to do whatever it takes to make it happen in 2018. And I believe it's important for all of us. We're going into a very economically unstable world over the next couple of years. Multiple income streams means you've got many horses in the race, and you're not sort of tied up in one. And like me, if you take Kensington or portfolio sale, that's why my life's been such a nightmare this year, because you're relying on, quite frankly, things that are out of your control. And if it was just one, thing that's happening out of multiple, then it wouldn't be such a big thing. But it wasn't. It was like these massive, monumental occasions. 15th one for me was India. So, it was interesting. There's never a good time to take a month off. And about 10 years ago, I put on my bucket list that I wanted to go to an ashram in India. Tony Robbins speaks of this amazing one called Osho. I did no research. I literally, on the back of good faith and following Tony Robbins and others, I just went straight there. I spoke to my wife about it. I booked myself in for a month. And it was interesting. I learned a lot of lessons. It was bloody hard, you know, laughing for 3 hours, nonstop for 7 days, crying for 7 days, sitting in silence for 7 days. You know, it was really, really a hectic experience. But, you know, for me, one of the things that I learned there was that I need more time for myself in my life. My father, you know, always said, do your best. And so my brother and I were brought up, you know, doing. And something I learned there was be your best. Sometimes just be. And, you know, Bill Gates, as an example, takes a week out once a quarter and literally books himself in away from family, friends, work, everything, and just goes and reads all the books that he wants to read for a week. And that's a big lesson for me again. I definitely need more time out for myself, more time to think, more time to sort of, you know, determine where I want to go. And most importantly, to rest and recover. You know, as a dad, as a husband, as a businessman, you know, there's so many demands on your life in terms of on your time. And you know, unfortunately, you can't look after others until you can look after yourself. And so that was a major lesson for me in 2018. The 16th one was the life cycle of the internet. And what most people don't know is that the internet basically started in 1995, and we had sort of Web 1.0. It only really went mainstream around 1998. And that was all desktop, and it was sort of Amazon and people buying books online and eBay and everything else. And then in 2005, Web 2.0 pretty much, you know, went live, but it only got mass attraction around 2008. And that was all around the social media, and then even social commerce. You know, so social media being Facebook, social commerce being Airbnb and Uber, etc. And now we're going into Web 3.0, and it pretty much started in, you know, around 2015. It's pretty much getting, you know, now mass adoption around 2018. And this is basically where it's O2O. So it's online to offline. And so it's things like WeWork and you know, even Uber and experiences like that. And, you know, the biggest funds in the world, the Vision Fund, etc., is $1 billion off. It's $100 billion fund, and they're investing in O2O, and it's Web 3.0. And, you know, people really need to understand this in terms of where the world's going. And again, I talk a lot about it on the trends below. But, you know, it's a big thing. You need to understand it, and blockchain's at the core of it. So that's the 16th lesson. The 17th one is, for me, the Wealth University. Another big lesson for me is that we've been talking about this Wealth University since 2014. I've built all the models. I've done all the courses. A lot of the content we've been giving away for free. And what was fascinating to me is that, you know, we always had an excuse that we, you know, didn't have enough money, or, you know, we didn't have the tech team or whatever. And so I was constantly out there trying to, you know, find the money. And then I, you know, decided to do it differently. And, you know, I talk a lot about being an exponential company. And, you know, exponential companies, you don't need everything in-house. And so working with Suraj and his team, we basically built out the investor test, the wealth quotient. If you haven't done this, I highly recommend it. It'll help you find your personalized path to wealth. No matter where you are and where you want to get to, you'll get a 25-page report. And, you know, this is the stuff I've put together over the last, you know, 20 years. If you look here, we've got our inner circle, you know, which is, you know, one of our groups. We've got the micro degree. Sorry, not that one. We've got the digital real estate mastermind. We've got the global real estate mastermind. And, you know, it just really shows, for me, I'm just showing you all the different things. This is actually the wealthuniversity.org. So this is where it's all in one page. And what's fascinating for me is that it all came together this year by outsourcing and working with the best partners around the world. And a lot of this content was already there. We just had to put it together. We've now got the micro degrees. We're on Udemy, which, I mean, it just blows me away. We've got 1,371 students from 99 countries with the micro degree there. And this, for me, is all about scale. And it's just really, really exciting because, you know, if you're going to empower 1 billion people, you need to do it by educating people. You need to do it by having much bigger reach. And for me, launching the Wealth University this year was certainly one of my biggest lessons, and something that I'm, you know, really excited about, because I believe this is how we can impact the most people. I believe this is how we, you know, will give people the self-confidence and the belief that it's possible. And only once they've got the self-confidence and the belief will we be able to really be able to empower people. And I think if I show you here quickly, just some of the products that we've created in the space in terms of the Wealth University. So you can see here, we've got the Wealth University, we've got the investor test, we've got the report, we've got the micro degree, my book, we've got all the white papers, we've got the WhatsApp groups, We've got the Wealth Insights, where I, interview really, great people every week. And then we've got the webinars. And I mean, the people we got lined up for next year are just amazing. I'm not going to share too much, but we've got an incredible year lined up. And then we've got the paid for stuff like the Inner Circle. We've got the Digital Real Estate Mastermind, and we've got the Global Real Estate Mastermind. And, everyone now has access to this. And I'm truly, really, really excited about where the Wealth University is going. It's launching in January. All the people that have invested through the Seeders campaign, blue or above, are going to be part of that. All our current wealth partners, and et cetera, et cetera. Because for me, this is the future, and it's also what juices me and gets me out of bed. Because I believe that if you can empower people and give them the self-belief, then you can give them the freedom to make the choices they want for their lives, and then they can go out and really be able to achieve it. And then the last lesson for me, which is an interesting one for me, and I'm going to share my screen here with you, is that, again, one that I got from Roger that I really like. And let me just pull up the slide that I wanted to share with you quickly before I share the lesson. And where's it gone? Okay, let's get to the slide that I'm looking for you. Here is the slide. And if I share my screen. So most people in life want clarity before they, make a commitment. And what was really interesting for me, spending quite a lot of time with Roger and his team and trying to learn best practice, was that it actually works the other way around. You need to make a commitment for what you want to achieve in your life. And the more commitment you make, the more certainty you'll have. And, the metaphor that it reminds me of is that sometimes when it's late at night and the lights are off and you take that step down a staircase, you just sort of have to trust the fact that there's a step below. And then you have to take another step, and you sort of have to trust the fact that there's a step below that. And that's what, commitment, you make the commitment first, and then you have the certainty. And then the more you get certainty, the more you're going to get clarity. And you don't know everything. There's a great book that I love to read called The One Thing. And in The One Thing, it said, look, commit to the most important thing, and then just embrace chaos, because you know that the rest of your life is in chaos. You can't do everything. And that for me, it's all the same messages from the universe. Get committed, and then you'll get that certainty. And then, with more and more time, you'll get more and more clarity in terms of where the world is going. And, it's a great metaphor, for me. And one of the things that I say to myself every morning when I do my priming is that I want to be a courageous leader. I want to be connected with myself. I want to be faithfully purposeful. And what I mean by that is that, the bigger universe, I've got to rely on the bigger universe and to be faithful in terms of and purposeful. I also have a saying that I learned from Robin Banks called, and I do this every morning to sort of psych myself up, pump myself up. It's, I am brilliant, I am bright, I am a radiant being of light, I'm an outstanding peak performer, I'm a dynamic, faithful, global transformer. And it's just these little things that I do and say all the time to wake myself up. And, when you're dealing with heavy negativity or problems or, whatever, you just remind yourself that there's a purposeful journey out there. And as long as you're committed to it, and, the more you commit, the more you're going to get that certainty. And the more you get that certainty, you get that clarity. And I wanted to finish off with the last thing. It's not a lesson, but it's a bonus. And that's what I learned from Roger Hamilton, called a future vision. And the future vision is where, as Van Gogh said, he dreams his painting and then he paints his dream. And future vision is where you take your life and you basically work backwards. And so if I do a quick search here for my future vision, you can see that every year I create a future vision, and you can see my future vision in 2027 there. It's a little bit of fun, and I'll open up this one. And this is for me. So this was 10 years away. And what I wanted to achieve, and what I want for my family, and for my health and my wealth and the people around me and who I impact. And, I look at all different 7 areas of my life and how you can go out there and basically create the future. And then you go forward into the future, and then you look backwards and you get very grateful for your life and what's happened and how it's happened. And if you think about it, it's all the same stuff. It's the same as Simon Sinek. Get clear on the why, and then the what and the how will fall into place. Get clear on your certainty or your commitment, and then your certainty and your clarity will come. And so this is a future vision. If you would like the template, reach out to me on social media, and you know, I feel very, very strongly that people, you know, should have a future vision and get very clear on what they want to achieve for the year, and get grateful, but looking backwards, not of what's coming, but what's already happened, and then make it a reality. And so that's for me, Scott Picken, signing out. That's the 18 lessons from 2018. If this is something of value to you, you know, subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends. You know, next year we're going to walk a journey. Many, many people have asked to be coached or mentored by me, and I can't do it one-to-one. I just don't have the time. But what I do, and what we have now created with the Wealth University, is we've created the inner circle. You know, we've got a great little offer just before Christmas if you want to come and join and be part of that. And, you know, we've empowered anyone to be able to be part of that. We've got the digital real estate mastermind for people that want to be at the intersection of technology and property. And we've also got the global real estate mastermind, where I'll be going deep into all the techniques I use around my goals, long-term planning, medium-term and short-term planning, things like the future vision, and everything I learned from the best in the world. And so if that's of value to you, you know, come and join us on the journey. And I look forward to helping you make 2019 the best year that you've ever had, basically. And certainly, I'm not going to do it all alone. You know, for me, but being part of a mastermind is incredible, because you're dealing with like-minded people, and I expect you to hold me accountable so that I step up and take my life to the next level. I've shared with you some pretty vulnerable things of some of the hardest lessons I've learned this year, and not a lot of them were fun. But I know that were important, and I know that at the age of 41, it's going to help me go to another level. And so for me, that's Scott Picken signing out here from a noisy little cafe in Cape Town. Hope you've enjoyed the 18 lessons. Have a wonderful festive season and a holiday wherever you are in the world with your family. And I look forward to you coming out super strong, with the commitment, with the certainty, and getting the clarity in 2019 to create the life that you want for you and your family, to have the freedom to be able to do anything you want in your life. And that's all I really am passionate about. That's what I believe my purpose is on this planet. And I leave you with one thought. You might or might not have heard it before, but my mission statement is to create a world of wealth, health, and happiness, to have lots of fun and inspire growth and change in others. Signing out. See you in 2019. Cheers.